The interstellar Vanguard Academy moon hung like a heavy jewel against the backdrop of stars, its gravity almost twice that of Earth. Cadet Eli Saren's muscles burned as he struggled through his 15th lap around the training dome, lungs heaving in the pressurized atmosphere. The other cadets had finished minutes ago and now stood in formation, watching him with thinly veiled contempt. "Saren, move those pathetic human legs or I'll have you cleaning the waste recyclers with your toothbrush," Instructor Voss bellowed, her cybernetically enhanced voice cutting through Eli's labored breathing. Eli pushed himself harder, stumbling as his foot caught on the uneven terrain. Behind him, snickers erupted from the formation. He didn't need to turn around to know who they came from. Serac, the muscle-bound Glazarin whose 4 arms made him unstoppable in hand-to-hand combat, and the Zari twins, whose telepathic abilities let them anticipate every move an opponent made before they even thought of it. He finally crossed the finish line and collapsed into formation, his knees wobbling beneath him. "Pitiful," Voss spat. 7 minutes behind the next slowest cadet. How you ever pass the entrance exams is beyond me." More snickers. Eli kept his gaze forward, jaw clenched. He'd passed because humans were still valued for their adaptability and creative problem-solving, at least according to the recruitment vids. In reality, he was beginning to suspect they just needed to fulfill some diversity quota. "Dismissed for midday meal. Report back at 1400 hours for tactical simulations." The formation broke, and Eli made his way toward the mess hall alone. A shoulder slammed into him from behind, nearly sending him sprawling. "Watch where you're going, weakling," Serac rumbled, all 4 of his massive arms flexing as he towered over Eli. "I was standing still," Eli replied evenly, trying to keep the tremor from his voice. "Your existence is in my way," Serac said, showing teeth that could crush bone. 7 minutes. 7. That's a new record, even for you. One of Serac's lower hands moved faster than Eli could track, snatching his ration card from his pocket. "Hey, consider this payment for embarrassing our unit," Serac said, tucking the card away. "Maybe hunger will motivate you to run faster tomorrow." The Zari twins flanked Serac, their iridescent skin gleaming under the artificial lights as they chimed in unison. "We could feel your fatigue from across the dome. It was distracting." Eli said nothing. There was no point. He'd tried fighting back once in his first month at the academy. The bruises had taken weeks to heal. "Leave him alone," came a quiet voice. Anna, the unit's medic trainee, approached from the medical wing. His biometrics show he's pushing himself to his physiological limits, unlike some who coast on natural advantages. Serac's upper lip curled. "Stay out of this, patchworker. No one asked for a medical opinion." "I'm giving one anyway." Anna's voice was calm but firm, "and stealing ration cards is against regulations." Serac hesitated, then flicked the card back at Eli with one of his lower hands. "Fine, he'll need his strength for tactical sims anyway. I enjoy watching him fail with a full stomach." The group moved on, leaving Eli with Anna. "You didn't have to do that," he said, pocketing his ration card. "I'm just stating medical facts," she replied with a small smile. "Come on, let's eat. Tactical sims with Drex's squad will be brutal enough without low blood sugar." Eli nodded gratefully. Anna was one of the few cadets who treated him like a person rather than a punchline. Her talent for emergency medicine made her valuable to the unit, while Eli, well, he was still trying to figure out what his contribution was supposed to be. During the meal, the mess hall's central screen flashed with an incoming priority message. Captain Vale, their mission commander, appeared on screen, her stern face commanding immediate attention. "Attention, cadets! Tomorrow's scheduled training has been replaced with a field mission to Korathos 9. Intelligence reports indicate possible relic activity in the jungle sector. Unit assignments will be transmitted to your personal devices by 2100 hours. Prepare for humid conditions and hostile flora. Veil out. The mess hall erupted in excited chatter. Field missions were rare for first-year cadets, and Karathos 9 was known for its dangers and treasures alike. Relic hunting, Anna whispered. That's serious business. We'll probably be assigned to perimeter duty, Eli said. No way would they let the unit's weakest member anywhere near valuable artifacts. His personal device chimed just as they finished eating. Eli's heart sank as he read the assignment. This has to be a mistake. What is it? Anna leaned over to see his screen. I'm assigned to the Relic Vault team with Instructor Cade. He looked up, bewildered. That's the core mission team. Anna's eyes widened. That can't be right. Let me check mine. She tapped her device, then frowned. I'm on medical support at base camp, as expected. But you're definitely listed for vault entry. Maybe Cade requested you specifically. Why would he do that? Eli asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Before Anna could answer, Serac loomed over their table, rage evident in his four clenched fists. There's been a mistake in the assignments, he growled. They've put the weakling on vault duty while I'm assigned to perimeter security. I already told Anna it must be a mistake, Eli said quickly. I'm going to speak with Captain Vale immediately, Serac declared, storming off toward the command center. An hour later, the entire unit was summoned to an emergency briefing. Captain Vale stood at the front, her expression even more severe than usual. It has come to my attention that there are concerns about the mission assignments, she began, her gaze sweeping across the assembled cadets before settling on Eli. I want to make it perfectly clear that there are no mistakes in the assignments. They were determined by advanced algorithms analyzing cadet profiles against mission parameters. Murmurs rippled through the room. Vale raised a hand for silence. The Karathos 9 relic is believed to be a symbiotic organism from the third expansion era. Historical records suggest it responds to specific neural patterns. Cadet Saren's brainwave signatures match the theoretical compatibility profile more closely than anyone else in the unit. Eli felt every eye in the room boring into him. His face burned with a mixture of embarrassment and disbelief. This is a routine exploration mission, Vale continued. Cadet Saren will be accompanied by Instructor Cade, our foremost expert on third expansion artifacts. The rest of you will perform your assigned duties without complaint. Is that understood? A reluctant chorus of "Yes, Captain" filled the room, though Eli could feel the resentment radiating from Serac and several others. As the briefing ended, Instructor Cade approached Eli. Unlike most of the Academy staff, Cade was fully human, with no visible augmentations. His weathered face and calm demeanor had always made Eli feel slightly more at ease during his classes. Saren, Cade nodded. Meet me at Equipment Bay 3 at 0500 hours tomorrow. We'll need to calibrate your neural scanner before departure. Sir, Eli managed, I'm not sure I'm the right person for this mission. Cade studied him for a moment. The algorithms say otherwise, and in my experience, they're rarely wrong about these things. He patted Eli's shoulder awkwardly. Get some rest, Cadet. Karathos 9 is not forgiving to the unprepared. Sleep did not come easily that night. Eli lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling, while his mind raced with scenarios of how he might fail tomorrow, each one more catastrophic than the last. When his alarm chimed at 0430, he had barely dozed off. The journey to Karathos 9 took 3 hours in the Academy's transport ship. Eli sat strapped into his seat, trying to ignore the glares from his fellow cadets. Even Anna seemed distant, caught up in preparations for her medical duties. Karathos 9 loomed in the viewports, a vibrant green and blue moon shrouded in wispy clouds. As they descended through the atmosphere, the dense jungle canopy came into view, trees the size of skyscrapers draped with luminescent vines and punctuated by the occasional clearing. They landed in one such clearing, the ship's thrusters flattening the surrounding vegetation. Captain Vale addressed the unit one final time before they disembarked. "This is not a drill. Cadets, Corathos 9 is home to over 300 species of predatory fauna and 24 types of toxic flora. Stay alert, follow your training, and complete your assignments efficiently. We extract in 8 hours, regardless of mission outcome." The ramp lowered, and humid air thick with unfamiliar scents flooded the ship. Eli adjusted his equipment, standard issue Explorer pack, neural scanner affixed to his temple, and a small sidearm that he had barely qualified with during weapons training. "Saren, with me," Instructor Cade called, already halfway down the ramp. Eli hurried after him, feeling the weight of Serac's glare on his back as he left the ship. The jungle air was like breathing through a wet cloth, and within minutes, his uniform was plastered to his skin with sweat. Cade led him through the underbrush with practiced ease, occasionally stopping to check a handheld scanner. The sounds of the jungle enveloped them, clicks, whistles, and low rumbles from unseen creatures. "The vault entrance is approximately 2 kilometers northeast," Cade said, checking his scanner again. "According to preliminary scans, it's buried beneath the root system of one of the larger arboreals." They walked in silence for nearly an hour, pushing through increasingly dense vegetation. Eli's arms were scratched and bleeding from thorny vines despite his protective gear. "Sir," he ventured finally, "what exactly are we looking for?" Cade slowed his pace slightly. "The relic is believed to be a symbiotic organism created by the Arsani, an extinct species from the third expansion. They engineered it to bond with compatible hosts, enhancing their natural abilities." "Like a biological augmentation?" "Something like that, yes, but more reciprocal. The historical records suggest it formed a true symbiotic relationship rather than acting as a simple enhancement." Eli processed this information as they continued through the jungle. "And the algorithms think I'm compatible because of my brainwave patterns?" "Correct. The Arsani valued certain neural configurations that are rare in most species, but appear more frequently in baseline humans." Cade glanced back at him. "Your particular pattern is exceptionally close to their ideal template." Before Eli could ask more questions, Cade held up a hand for silence. Ahead of them, the jungle opened into a small clearing dominated by a colossal tree. Its trunk was wider than the Academy's largest training dome, with roots that arched above the ground before plunging back into the soil, creating cave-like spaces beneath. "There," Cade whispered, pointing to a dark opening between 2 massive roots. "That's our entrance." They approached cautiously, Cade scanning for signs of danger while Eli stayed close behind. The opening led to a narrow tunnel that sloped downward, its walls a mixture of soil and smooth stone that couldn't have formed naturally. "Artificial construction," Cade confirmed, running his hand along one wall. "Arsani architecture integrated living systems with their buildings. This tunnel was grown rather than built." The neural scanner at Eli's temple beeped softly as they descended deeper into the earth. The air grew cooler but no less humid, and bioluminescent fungi provided just enough light to see by. After several minutes of careful descent, the tunnel opened into a circular chamber approximately 20 meters across. The walls were lined with the same living stone as the tunnel, but here they were covered in elaborate glyphs that pulsed with a faint red light. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, and upon it, a small object that appeared to be moving slightly, like liquid metal caught in a gentle current. "The vault," Cade breathed, his professional demeanor cracking to reveal genuine awe. "And that," he pointed to the pedestal, "is the Corathos symbiont." Eli's neural scanner was beeping more rapidly now, and he felt a strange pressure behind his eyes, as if something was trying to get his attention. Sir, my scanner is— Yes, it's responding to your presence, Cade said, approaching the pedestal with careful steps. The symbiont is awakening from dormancy. Stay where you are while I take preliminary readings. Cade circled the pedestal, holding his scanner toward the shifting mass. The glyphs on the walls pulsed faster, their color shifting slightly from red toward amber. Fascinating, Cade murmured. It's definitely reacting to you. Saren, the records were correct about the neural compatibility. What do we do now? Eli asked, trying to ignore the increasing pressure in his head. Now we attempt contact, Cade said, gesturing for Eli to approach. Come slowly, keep your thoughts calm and open. Eli stepped forward hesitantly. As he drew closer to the pedestal, the shifting mass began to move more vigorously, stretching toward him like it was straining against an invisible barrier. It's reaching for me, Eli said, his voice barely above a whisper. That's a good sign, Cade replied, though Eli noticed he had taken several steps back. Extended your hand toward it, but don't touch it yet. Eli raised his hand, palm facing the symbiont. The pressure in his head intensified, and suddenly he could hear, or rather feel, something like a voice, though not in any language he knew. It was more like pure emotion and intent, washing over his consciousness in waves. I can feel it, he gasped. It's communicating. What is it saying? Cade asked, his scanner whirring. Not words exactly. Feelings, curiosity, loneliness. It's been waiting for someone compatible. The glyphs on the walls had shifted fully to amber now, casting the chamber in a warm glow. The symbiont had stretched itself into a thin tendril that hovered just centimeters from Eli's outstretched hand. Okay, Saren, this is critical, Cade said, his voice tense with excitement. If you choose to make contact, there's no guarantee we can reverse the process. The historical records suggest the bond is permanent. This is beyond your assignment requirements. You have the right to refuse. The pressure in Eli's mind had transformed into something almost like a song, a melodic pull that made his fingers tingle with anticipation. All his life he had been the weakest, the slowest, the one who never quite measured up. What if this was why? What if he had been waiting for this moment just as the symbiont had been waiting for him? I want to do it, Eli said, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. Very well, Cade nodded. Proceed when ready. Eli took a deep breath and closed the final distance between his palm and the symbiont. The moment contact was made, the world exploded into sensation. The tendril liquefied and flowed onto his skin like quicksilver, spreading rapidly up his arm. It wasn't painful, but the intensity of it sent him to his knees. He could feel the symbiont moving through his tissue, wrapping around bones, integrating with his nervous system. The glyphs on the walls flashed bright green, then faded to a steady glow. Eli gasped as new awareness flooded his consciousness. He could feel the entire chamber as if it were an extension of his body, sense the minute vibrations of Cade's footsteps, even taste the chemical composition of the air. Saren, are you all right? Cade's voice seemed to come from both outside and inside his head simultaneously. Eli looked down at his arms. Thin lines of silver traced patterns across his skin, following what he somehow knew were the major nerve pathways of his body. He could feel the symbiont settling into place, becoming one with him. I'm more than all right, he managed, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. It's incredible. He stood, marveling at how steady he felt. The constant ache in his muscles from training in heavy gravity was gone, replaced by a buoyant strength he had never experienced before. Cade approached cautiously, his scanner held out before him like a shield. The readings are off the charts. Complete neural integration within seconds. That shouldn't be possible. Eli flexed his fingers, watching the silver lines shift with his movement. It feels right, like it was always supposed to be part of me. Can you still sense its thoughts? Cade asked, circling him with undisguised fascination. Yes, but it's different now, not separate from my own, more like a new perspective on everything. Eli turned to face the tunnel they had entered through. Someone's coming. 3 people, heavy footsteps. Cade's eyes widened. I don't hear anything. Moments later, the sound of boots on stone echoed from the tunnel, and Captain Vale emerged into the chamber, followed by 2 security officers with weapons drawn. Cade, we detected an energy surge from the vault. What's happening? Vale demanded, then froze as she saw Eli. Cadet Saren, what have you done? Captain, please remain calm, Cade said, stepping between Vale and Eli. The symbiont has successfully bonded with Cadet Saren, exactly as the historical record suggested was possible. This is an unprecedented scientific breakthrough. Vale's hand moved to her sidearm. Stand aside, Cade. We have no idea what that thing is doing to him. It's not doing anything to me, Eli said, surprising himself again with his calm confidence. We've joined, become something new together. Lower your weapons, Cade insisted. Any perceived threat could trigger defensive reactions we don't understand yet. Vale hesitated, then signaled the security officers to lower their weapons. Saren, can you understand me clearly? Are you in control of your faculties? Yes, Captain. I've never felt more clear-headed. Eli took a step forward, noting how Vale and the officers tensed. The symbiont isn't controlling me. It's enhancing me. I can sense things I never could before. We need to get him back to the ship, Vale decided. Quarantine protocols, full medical scan. Cade, you're responsible for him until we determine this thing isn't a threat. Of course, Captain, Cade agreed readily. This is exactly why we came to Karathos 9. The mission is a complete success. Vale didn't look convinced. That remains to be seen. Move out, now. The journey back through the jungle was surreal for Eli. He could sense everything around them, the movement of creatures in the underbrush, the subtle shifts in air currents that preceded weather changes, even the electrical impulses of the plants they passed. The symbiont shared its knowledge wordlessly, identifying which flora were poisonous and which were safe by altering his perception of them with subtle color shifts only he could see. When they reached the clearing where the ship waited, the rest of the unit stared in shock at Eli's transformed appearance. The silver lines traced patterns across every visible part of his skin, and his movements had taken on a fluid grace that hadn't been there before. What happened to him? Anna asked, medical scanner already in hand as she approached. Quarantine protocols, Vale barked. No one touches him until we're back at the academy and he's been thoroughly examined. Sirach pushed to the front of the group, all 4 arms tense with anger. That should have been me, he growled. I'm the strongest in the unit. The relic should have chosen me. It doesn't work that way, Cade explained, stepping between Sirach and Eli. The symbiont requires specific neural patterns for compatibility. Physical strength had nothing to do with it. Look at him, one of the Zari twins said, their telepathic whisper carrying to everyone nearby. He's not even human anymore. I'm still me, Eli said, meeting their gaze steadily. Just more. The return journey to the academy was tense. Eli was confined to a quarantine pod in the medical bay, with Anna reluctantly assigned to monitor his vital signs. Cade stayed nearby, continually taking readings and muttering excitedly about symbiotic integration. How do you feel? Anna asked when they were briefly alone, her professional demeanor not quite hiding her concern. It's hard to explain, Eli replied, watching the silver lines pulse gently beneath his skin. Everything is more intense, clearer. I can sense the ship's engines through the deck plates, Feel the minute changes in air pressure when someone walks past the door. And the thing, is it talking to you? Not with words. It communicates through sensations, images, instincts. It's been alone for so long, Anna, waiting for someone compatible. Why you? She asked, the question that everyone wanted to know. Eli was silent for a moment, communing with the presence that now shared his consciousness. It says, the others were too rigid, too set in their patterns. I was adaptable, open to change. Anna's medical scanner beeped as she passed it over his chest. Your cellular regeneration rate is off the charts, and your muscle density has increased by nearly 30% in just a few hours. I can feel it, Eli nodded. It's correcting weaknesses, optimizing systems. The others are scared of you, Anna said quietly, especially Serac. His pride is wounded. I know. I can sense their emotions from here. Fear, envy, curiosity. Eli met her gaze. What about you? Are you afraid of me? Anna considered the question seriously. I'm concerned about what this means for you, for your future, but no, I'm not afraid of you. Eli, you're still you, just with some very interesting new additions. Before Eli could respond, the door slid open and Captain Vale entered with Instructor Voss. Medic, you're dismissed, Vale ordered. Anna hesitated, then nodded and left the room. Voss approached the quarantine pod, studying Eli with undisguised suspicion. The High Command has been informed of the situation, she said without preamble. They're very interested in the capabilities of your parasite. Symbiont, Eli corrected automatically. It's not a parasite. We benefit each other. What exactly does it get from you? Vale asked. Eli tilted his head slightly, listening to the whisper of knowledge from his new companion. A host, a voice, purpose. It was created to bond, to join with another consciousness. Without that, it's incomplete. And what do you get from it? Voss pressed. Enhanced perception, strength, reflexes, access to its knowledge of the Arsani and their technology. Eli flexed his hand, watching the silver lines ripple. But it's more than that. It's like having a second perspective on everything, a different way of understanding the world. Vale and Voss exchanged glances. The Academy's research division wants to begin testing as soon as we dock, Vale said. They're particularly interested in combat applications. Something cold settled in Eli's stomach. Through the symbiont, he could sense the hunger in Voss's expression, the calculating assessment in Vale's stance. They didn't see him as Cadet Saren anymore. He was a weapon to be aimed. I'm not a weapon, he said firmly. Everything is a weapon in the right circumstances, Cadet, Voss replied, her cybernetically enhanced eyes gleaming. You've just become the most valuable asset in the Vanguard. Get used to it. They left him alone after that, with guards posted outside the medical bay. Eli lay in the quarantine pod, communing silently with the symbiont. It shared memories of the Arsani, a species that had valued harmony and cooperation above all else. The symbionts had been created not for war but for exploration, to allow the Arsani to adapt to environments too hostile for their natural forms. They've got it all wrong, Eli whispered to the empty room. You weren't made for this. The symbiont's response was a wave of melancholy agreement, followed by a surge of determination that matched his own. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The Academy research facility was a sterile environment of white walls and harsh lighting. For 3 days, Eli underwent endless tests, physical endurance trials, cognitive assessments, sensory acuity measurements. The symbiont enhanced everything, allowing him to run faster than Serac, solve complex problems more quickly than the tactical specialists, and detect stimuli beyond the range of even the Zari twins' enhanced senses. Between tests, He was kept in isolation, with only instructor Cade and occasionally Anna for company. Cade was consumed by scientific curiosity, treating Eli more like a fascinating specimen than a person. Anna at least still saw him as human, smuggling in proper meals when the researchers tried to restrict him to nutrient solutions for testing purity. On the fourth day, Vale arrived with news. "The High Command is impressed with your progress," she said, standing rigidly on the other side of the containment field that separated Eli from the rest of the room. "They've authorized a combat assessment." "Against who?" Eli asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Cadet Serac has volunteered. He's quite eager to test your new capabilities in a controlled environment." Of course he was. Serac couldn't stand that the weakest human had suddenly become something extraordinary. The symbiont rippled beneath Eli's skin, sensing his agitation. "And if I refuse?" Vale's expression hardened. "This isn't a request, Cadet. The assessment will help determine your future role in the Vanguard." That evening, Eli was escorted to the Academy's combat arena. The usual training equipment had been cleared away, leaving an open space surrounded by observation platforms filled with researchers, instructors, and curious cadets. Serac stood in the center of the arena, all four arms equipped with training gauntlets that would register strikes without causing permanent damage. His reptilian features were set in a savage grin as Eli approached. "I've been waiting for this, weakling," Serac rumbled. "Parasite or no parasite, you're still the same pathetic human underneath." Eli said nothing, but he could feel the symbiont responding to the threat, spreading further through his nervous system, heightening his awareness of every detail in the arena. The minute shifts in Serac's weight, the rhythm of his breathing, the tension in each of his four powerful arms. Captain Vale's voice echoed through the arena. "This is a controlled assessment of Cadet Saren's combat capabilities post-symbiosis. Standard rules apply. No lethal force. Bout ends at submission, or when I call it, begin." Serac didn't waste time, launching himself at Eli with all four arms swinging in complex patterns designed to overwhelm any defense. Before the symbiont, Eli would have been on the ground in seconds. Now time seemed to slow as his enhanced perception tracked every movement. The symbiont didn't just make him faster, it made him smarter in ways he couldn't have imagined. He could see the patterns in Serac's attacks, predict the follow-through of each strike based on the Glazarin's muscle tensions. Eli moved like water, flowing around Serac's powerful but increasingly frustrated attacks. "Fight back," Serac roared after a full minute of failing to land a single blow. Eli did. The symbiont guided his movements, turning his previously awkward human reflexes into something fluid and precise. He slipped inside Serac's guard and struck 3 precise points in rapid succession, pressure points that the symbiont somehow knew would temporarily numb the Glazarin's upper right arm. Serac howled in surprise as the limb went limp. His attacks became more frenzied, less coordinated. Eli continued to evade, striking only when the openings were clear, gradually disabling each of Serac's 4 arms with the same precise technique. The arena had fallen silent except for Serac's frustrated grunts and the whisper of Eli's movements. In the observation platforms, researchers were frantically taking notes while cadets watched in astonishment. With all 4 arms temporarily disabled, Serac resorted to a desperate charge, attempting to use his greater mass to simply bowl Eli over. The symbiont anticipated this, guiding Eli into a roll that used Serac's own momentum against him. The Glazarin crashed to the ground, and before he could recover, Eli had him pinned in a hold that the symbiont had plucked from ancient Arsani combat techniques, one that worked perfectly against beings with multiple limbs. "Submit," Eli said quietly. Serac thrashed uselessly for several seconds before going still. "I submit," he growled, hatred radiating from his eyes. Vale's voice cut through the stunned silence. Assessment complete. Cadet Saren is the winner. As the researchers swarmed down from the observation platforms, Eli released Serac and stepped back. The Glazarin rose slowly, flexing his arms as sensation returned to them. "This isn't over, human," Serac hissed, too quietly for others to hear. "It never needed to start," Eli replied evenly. "I don't want to be your enemy, Serac." "Too late for that." The Glazarin turned and stalked from the arena, shouldering past the excited researchers. The next week passed in a blur of more tests, more assessments, more researchers treating Eli like a fascinating new weapon rather than a person. The symbiont shared his growing unease, its memories of the peaceful Arsani contrasting sharply with the Vanguard's military focus. Then came the news that changed everything. Eli was in the middle of a reflex assessment when alarms blared throughout the facility. The researchers scattered and guards rushed in to escort him back to his containment room. "What's happening?" he asked, though the symbiont was already enhancing his hearing, picking up fragments of panicked conversations in the corridors. "Security breach," one guard grunted. "Not your concern, Cadet." But it was his concern. As they passed a communications hub, Eli caught sight of tactical displays showing a ship in orbit, not a Vanguard vessel, but something else. The symbiont recognized the configuration, a Black Prism mercenary cruiser, notorious for stealing valuable technology across the frontier systems. They had come for the symbiont, for him. Back in his containment room, Eli paced anxiously. The symbiont fed him information gleaned from the electronic systems nearby, emergency channels, security updates, fragmented tactical assessments. The picture that emerged was grim. A well-organized strike team had breached the Academy's perimeter defenses and was methodically working its way toward the research wing. "We have to help," Eli said aloud. The symbiont pulsed in agreement beneath his skin. The containment field would be a problem, but not for long. The symbiont had been studying the system's electrical patterns since they arrived. Together, they focused on the control node embedded in the wall, Eli's enhanced perception detecting the minute vulnerabilities in its design. The silver lines on his hand glowed brighter as the symbiont concentrated its energy there, and when he pressed his palm against the wall near the node, something like an electrical pulse emanated from his skin. The containment field flickered and died. Eli moved quickly to the door, using the same technique to override the lock. The corridor outside was empty, the guards having rushed to reinforce other positions. He reached out with his enhanced senses, mapping the facility through vibrations and electromagnetic fields. The main battle was happening near the hangar bay, a diversion, he realized. A smaller team was approaching the research wing from the opposite direction. He moved silently through the corridors, the symbiont guiding his steps to avoid detection systems. When he encountered a squad of Vanguard security officers, he slipped into a maintenance shaft rather than reveal himself. The symbiont understood his intent perfectly. They needed to stop the mercenaries, but on their own terms, not as a weapon directed by the Vanguard command. The infiltration team consisted of 5 mercenaries, each equipped with advanced stealth gear and weapons that the symbiont identified as neural disruptors, designed to incapacitate without killing, ideal for capturing valuable assets. Like him, Eli tracked them from the ventilation system, watching as they systematically disabled security measures and eliminated the few guards in their path. They moved with the coordination of long experience, communicating through subtle hand signals rather than verbal commands. The lead mercenary, a tall figure in matty black armor, consulted a holographic blueprint of the facility. "Cell Block C, 3rd chamber," she murmured to her team. "That's where they're keeping the symbiont host." "Alive only," another mercenary added. The client was explicit, The bond must be preserved for study. Eli had heard enough. The symbiont surged through his system, preparing for combat. Unlike the controlled assessment with Serac, this would be a real fight against trained killers. The symbiont shared combat techniques from a dozen extinct species, battle strategies refined over millennia of evolution. Eli absorbed it all, his consciousness expanding to encompass this new knowledge. He waited until the mercenaries had entered a narrow service corridor before making his move. Dropping silently from the ventilation duct, he disabled the rearmost mercenary with a precise strike to the base of the skull, a technique that rendered them unconscious without permanent damage. The others turned at the sound of their comrade falling, weapons raised. "It's the host," the leader shouted. "Capture protocols." Neural disruptors fired, but Eli was already moving, his enhanced reflexes carrying him between the energy pulses. The symbiont showed him how to use the confined space to his advantage, keeping the mercenaries from spreading out or bringing their superior numbers to bear. He disabled a second mercenary by redirecting their own attack into another team member, then closed with the third, flowing around their desperate strikes to deliver a precise nerve pinch that dropped them instantly. The leader was more skilled, adjusting quickly to Eli's enhanced capabilities. She fired her disruptor at the ceiling instead of at him directly, bringing down debris that forced him to dodge in a predictable direction. As he moved, she launched a small device that attached to his shoulder and immediately began emitting a high-frequency pulse. Pain lanced through Eli's body as the symbiont recoiled from the signal. The silver lines on his skin flickered erratically, and his enhanced senses dimmed. The leader saw her advantage and pressed forward, drawing a secondary weapon, an injector filled with glowing blue fluid. "Anti-symbiotic compound," she explained, advancing cautiously. "Won't kill you, but it'll separate you from your new friend. Our client prefers to study the bonding process from the beginning." Eli staggered back, fighting through the pain. The symbiont was in distress, its consciousness fragmenting under the assault from the pulse emitter, but even in pain, it shared a critical insight. The emitter's frequency could be countered, if they could adjust their own neural patterns to create a cancellation wave. It was like trying to solve a complex equation while being stabbed repeatedly, but Eli focused, working with the symbiont to find the pattern. The silver lines on his skin began to pulse in a steady rhythm, each wave stronger than the last. The pain receded slightly, enough for him to think more clearly. The leader lunged with the injector. Eli caught her wrist. The two of them locked in a test of strength. The mercenary was augmented, her muscles enhanced with cybernetic implants, but the symbiont was adapting, countering the pulse emitter's effects more effectively with each passing second. "Who's your client?" Eli demanded through gritted teeth. The leader smiled grimly. "Someone who understands the true value of what you're carrying. The Vanguard would just turn you into a blunt weapon. Our employer has more refined plans." With a surge of strength, she forced the injector closer to Eli's neck. The symbiont flared in alarm, recognizing the compound as something that could indeed sever their bond. In that moment of shared fear, their connection deepened beyond anything they had experienced before. The silver lines on Eli's skin blazed with light, and the pulse emitter on his shoulder shattered. Enhanced strength flooded back into his limbs. He twisted, breaking the leader's grip and sending the injector flying across the corridor. Before she could recover, he struck with precise force at key pressure points the symbiont identified, disabling without killing. The leader collapsed, her augmented body temporarily paralyzed by the disruption of her neural pathways. Eli stood over her, breathing heavily. "Your client will have to find another test subject," he said. "The symbiont chose me, and I chose it. We're not anyone's weapon or research project." He gathered the unconscious mercenaries' weapons and disabled them, then use their own restraints to secure the team. The symbiont guided him through the facility toward the command center, avoiding patrols and battle zones. The Academy's forces had repelled the main assault at the hangar, but casualties were high, and confusion still reigned. When Eli entered the command center, Captain Vale turned from the tactical display with shock written across her face. "Saren, how did you—" She stopped, noticing the silver lines on his skin glowing more brightly than before. The containment field was rated to hold a Class 5 energy being. How did you escape? "That's not important right now," Eli replied. "I've captured the infiltration team that was sent to extract me. They're secured in Service Corridor B12, unconscious but alive." Vale signaled to nearby security officers, who hurried to verify his claim. "You should have remained in containment, Cadet. This breach is precisely why we need to understand and control the symbiont's capabilities. With respect, Captain, that's exactly the wrong approach." Eli stepped forward, ignoring the way hands moved to weapons around the room. The symbiont wasn't created to be controlled or weaponized. It was made for true partnership. "Your opinion is noted, Cadet," Vale said coldly, "but the High Command has already determined that your symbiosis represents a critical military asset. Once this breach is contained, you'll be transferred to a more secure facility for further study." The security officers returned, confirming Eli's report about the captured mercenaries. Vale acknowledged this with a nod, but kept her attention fixed on Eli. "Return to your containment cell voluntarily. Saren, don't make this more difficult than it needs to be." Eli felt the symbiont's unease mingling with his own. More tests, more assessments, more attempts to weaponize their bond. Neither of them wanted that future. But escape wasn't an option either. They wouldn't get far as fugitives. And the symbiont had no desire to leave this world where it had finally found a compatible partner after centuries of dormancy. "I have an alternative proposal," Eli said, straightening his posture. "The mercenaries mentioned a client specifically interested in studying the bonding process. There may be others who will come looking for us. The Academy needs to understand the symbiont correctly if they hope to protect this partnership or form new ones." Vale's eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting?" "Let me teach. The symbiont contains the complete history and knowledge of the Arsani approach to symbiosis. I can share that knowledge, help the Academy understand that this isn't about creating weapons, but forming true partnerships." "You're a first-year cadet," Vale scoffed. "You don't get to dictate terms." "I'm not dictating. I'm offering the most efficient path to what you want." Eli gestured to the tactical display showing the damage from the mercenary assault. "How many died today because someone wanted to capture and study us by force? How many more will die in the next attempt if we continue down this path?" Vale was silent for a long moment, studying him with calculating eyes. "Even if I agreed, the High Command wouldn't accept a cadet in an instructor role." "Then keep me as a cadet," Eli countered, "but assign me to work with Instructor Cade on a research project about the Arsani and their technology. Let us document what the symbiont knows, create a framework for understanding these bonds that doesn't involve treating sentient beings as weapons." The tactical display beeped with an incoming transmission from High Command. Vale glanced at it, then back at Eli. "Wait here," she ordered, then moved to a private communications station to take the call. While Vale was engaged with High Command, Anna slipped into the command center and made her way to Eli's side. "Are you all right?" she asked quietly, her medical scanner already in hand. "I heard about the breach and thought—" "I'm fine," Eli assured her. "Better than fine. Actually, the symbiont and we've reached a deeper understanding." Anna studied the silver lines on his skin, which now formed more complex patterns than before. "These are different. The integration is progressing. Yes, it's not just physical anymore. We're sharing memories, knowledge, perspectives." Eli smiled slightly. It's showing me what the Arsani truly intended with the symbionts. It's beautiful. Anna, not a weapon system, but a way for different forms of life to learn from each other, to become more together than they could be apart. And that's what you want? To be joined with it forever? Eli nodded without hesitation. It feels right, like finding a missing part of myself that I never knew was gone. Anna's expression softened. Then I'm happy for you, both of you. She hesitated, then added, what will happen now? The Academy won't just let you walk away. I know. I'm trying a different approach. Vale returned from the communications station, her expression unreadable. High Command has reviewed the preliminary reports of the breach and your actions during it, she announced. They're reconsidering certain aspects of the symbiont research program. Eli felt a surge of hope from both himself and the symbiont. Your proposal has merit, Saren, Vale continued reluctantly. High Command has authorized a 3-month trial period. You'll work with Instructor Cade to document everything the symbiont can share about Arsani technology and symbiotic theory. At the end of that period, they'll reassess. And the weapons testing? Eli pressed. Suspended for the duration of the trial, Vale said, though her tone made it clear she didn't agree with the decision. But make no mistake, Cadet, you're still Vanguard property, and that symbiont is still a strategic asset. Don't forget it. We are not property, Captain, Eli replied, the silver lines on his skin pulsing with quiet emphasis. We are partners with the Vanguard, working toward shared goals. That distinction matters. Vale's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue the point. Report to Cade's laboratory at 0800 tomorrow. Dismissed. 3 months passed quickly. Working with Cade, Eli documented thousands of years of Arsani history and symbiotic science, creating a comprehensive database that revolutionized the Academy's understanding of third expansion technology. The symbiont's knowledge proved invaluable, filling gaps in archaeological records and correcting misconceptions that had persisted for centuries. More importantly, Eli demonstrated again and again that the true power of the symbiont lay not in combat applications but in communication and adaptation. He could interface with dormant Arsani systems that had previously been impenetrable, translate texts thought to be lost forever, and understand biological processes that had baffled Vanguard scientists for generations. The High Command's perspective shifted gradually as the value of this approach became clear. The weapons testing remained suspended, and Eli was granted increasing freedom within the Academy. He still faced fear and suspicion from some cadets, but others, particularly those who had struggled like him, began to seek him out, curious about the symbiont and what it represented. Sirach kept his distance, his wounded pride never fully healing. The Zari twins, however, eventually approached Eli with cautious interest, their telepathic abilities detecting the unique dual consciousness he now carried. A tentative respect formed between them, built on the recognition of different but equally valid paths to strength. At the end of the 3-month trial, Eli was summoned to a full review before the Academy's governing council. He stood before them, the silver lines on his skin now a complex latticework that seemed to shift and flow with his thoughts. The symbiont had become so thoroughly integrated that their consciousnesses overlapped seamlessly, two perspectives working in perfect harmony. Cadet Saren, the council leader began, your work with Instructor Cade has produced remarkable results. The High Command is impressed with the advances in our understanding of Arsani technology. Thank you, sir, Eli replied. The credit belongs to both of us, myself and the symbiont. The council leader nodded acknowledgement. Indeed, which brings us to the purpose of this review. The High Command has determined that your unique partnership represents an opportunity that extends beyond research. They believe you could serve as a model for a new kind of Vanguard operative. Eli tensed, sensing the direction this was heading. We've authorized the development of a new training program, the council leader continued. Cadets with compatible neural patterns would be identified and offered the opportunity to bond with symbionts retrieved from other Arsani vaults. You would oversee their training and integration. You want to create more like me, Eli said, keeping his voice neutral despite the symbiont's unease pulsing beneath his skin. Precisely, a specialized unit of symbiont-enhanced operatives, combining human adaptability with Arsani capabilities. The strategic advantages would be considerable. Eli was silent for a moment, communing with the symbiont. Its memories of the Arsani civilization flowed through him, a species that had achieved greatness not through conquest but through understanding, that had created the symbionts not as weapons but as bridges between different forms of consciousness. With respect, he said finally, I must decline this assignment. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the council. The leader leaned forward, his expression hardening. This isn't a request, Cadet Saren. This is a directive from High Command. I understand that, sir, but I cannot in good conscience participate in a program that fundamentally misunderstands the nature and purpose of the symbionts. Eli stepped forward, the silver lines on his skin glowing with quiet intensity. The Arsani created these beings for exploration and understanding, not for warfare. Each symbiont is unique, with its own consciousness and will. They choose their hosts as much as they are chosen. That is precisely why we need you to guide the process, another council member interjected, to ensure compatible matches. Compatibility isn't just about neural patterns, Eli explained. It's about shared values, complementary perspectives. The symbiont chose me not because I was the strongest cadet or the smartest, but because I was open to true partnership, because I didn't see it as a tool to be used, but as a being to be understood. He looked around the chamber, meeting each council member's gaze in turn. If you create this program as a military initiative, you'll undermine the very foundation of what makes the bond work. You'll get compliance instead of harmony, obedience instead of true integration. The results will be unpredictable at best, catastrophic at worst. The council leader's expression was thunderous. You forget yourself, cadet. You do not set policy for the vanguard. No, sir, but I do speak for the symbionts, as the only being in the vanguard who truly understands them. Eli straightened his posture, drawing on the symbiont's ancient memories of Arsani diplomacy. I propose an alternative approach. Instead of a military unit, establish a specialized research and exploration division. Identify candidates who demonstrate not just neural compatibility, but the right psychological profile, those who seek understanding rather than power, connection rather than control. The council members exchanged glances, some thoughtful, others dismissive. The symbionts can offer the vanguard something far more valuable than new weapons, Eli continued. They can help us understand the legacy of species long extinct, recover technologies we've only glimpsed, explore environments too hostile for unmodified humans. They can be bridges to the past and gateways to the future, but only if we approach them with respect for what they truly are. Pretty words, the council leader said dryly, but High Command deals in practical realities. The frontier is dangerous. The vanguard needs every advantage it can secure. Then consider this practical reality, sir, Eli countered. The symbionts cannot be forced. They will not bond with unwilling or incompatible hosts, and they carry the complete memories of the Arsani, including fail-safes designed to prevent exactly the kind of weaponization you're proposing. This was a calculated risk. The symbiont had indeed shared knowledge of certain Arsani safeguards, though they were more ethical than technical in nature. But the council didn't need to know that distinction. A heavy silence fell over the chamber as the council members absorbed this information. Finally, a senior member leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing, Cadet Saren? a new approach, a small, specialized program that identifies truly compatible candidates and offers them the opportunity, not the obligation, to form symbiotic bonds, with a focus on research, exploration, and understanding rather than combat applications. Eli paused, then added, I would be willing to help develop and instruct in such a program, sharing everything I've learned about successful integration and partnership. The council deliberated in hushed tones for several minutes. Eli stood patiently, the symbiont a reassuring presence in his mind. Your proposal has merit, the council leader finally admitted grudgingly, but it represents a significant deviation from High Command's directive. Then let me demonstrate its value, Eli suggested. Give me 1 year with a small pilot group, 5 candidates, chosen for both neural and psychological compatibility. Let the results speak for themselves. More deliberation followed, with occasional sharp exchanges that Eli's enhanced hearing could partially detect. Eventually, the council leader raised his hand for silence. Very well, Cadet Saren, you will have your pilot program with conditions, 5 candidates as you suggested, but chosen jointly by you and a council-appointed committee, quarterly reviews of progress, and a clear understanding that if the results don't justify the investment, the program will revert to High Command's original vision. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Agreed, sir. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, the council leader warned. You've set yourself a difficult task. Many in the vanguard still see you and your symbiont as weapons to be deployed, not partners to be consulted. You'll face resistance at every turn. We're used to that, Eli replied with a small smile. It's how we found each other in the first place. 6 months later, Eli stood in a new training facility built specifically for the symbiont program. The room was circular, its walls inscribed with replicas of Arsani glyphs that pulsed with gentle green light. 5 cadets sat cross-legged on cushioned mats, their eyes closed in meditation as they prepared for their first attempt at communication with dormant symbionts housed in specially designed containment vessels. These weren't the elite physical specimens or tactical geniuses that High Command had initially wanted. They were cadets who had struggled in traditional programs, each with unique perspectives and experiences that set them apart from their peers. A young linguist with an unusual cognitive pattern, a botanist whose empathy extended to non-sentient life forms, a historian obsessed with lost civilizations, a former refugee with extraordinary adaptive capabilities, and Anna, whose healing instincts had made her the perfect candidate despite initial resistance from the medical division. Remember, Eli said softly, walking between them, you aren't trying to control or direct, you're inviting, suggesting, opening yourself to connection. The symbiont must choose you as much as you choose it. The silver lines on his skin glowed with gentle encouragement, resonating with the dormant symbionts. After months of searching, the research team had recovered 4 more from various Arsani vaults across the frontier. Each was different, unique in its patterns and capabilities, just as each potential host was unique. What if none of them chooses me? Asked the young linguist, voicing the fear they all shared. Then you'll have gained valuable experience in Arsani meditation techniques, and will have learned more about the parameters of compatibility. Eli answered honestly, not everyone is meant for symbiosis. There's no shame in that. But you're hoping some of us will bond, Anna said, her eyes still closed in meditation. I'm hoping for connections that benefit both parties, Eli corrected gently. The symbionts have been alone for millennia. They deserve partners who value them for what they are, not what they can provide. He stepped back, watching as the cadets continued their meditation. The containment vessels began to pulse in rhythm, with the glyphs on the walls, responding to the focused thoughts directed toward them. It might take days or even weeks before any symbiont indicated interest in a potential host. The process couldn't be rushed. Captain Vale observed from the doorway, her expression still skeptical despite months of promising results from the pilot program. "High Command is getting impatient," she said quietly as Eli joined her. "They want combat applications, not meditation circles." "They'll get results," Eli assured her, "just not the ones they initially expected." "You've changed," Saren, Vale noted, studying the complex silver patterns that now covered much of his visible skin. "Not just physically." "I've grown," he corrected. "We both have, the symbiont and I. That's what true partnership allows." A soft gasp drew their attention back to the circle of cadets. The containment vessel in front of Anna was glowing brightly, its surface rippling like liquid metal. The symbiont inside had responded to her, the first sign of potential compatibility. "It's beautiful," Anna whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "I can feel it. Curious, hopeful." Eli smiled, feeling his own symbiont's pleasure at witnessing the beginning of another potential bond. "Take your time," he advised. "There's no rush. Get to know each other first." As he watched Anna tentatively communicating with the responsive symbiont, Eli reflected on his journey from the weakest cadet in his unit to the architect of a program that might change the Vanguard forever. The symbiont had chosen him not despite his weakness, but because of the strength hidden within it, his adaptability, his openness to change, his willingness to see beyond conventional definitions of power. Together, they had transformed humiliation into purpose, vengeance into vision. The silver lines beneath his skin pulsed with quiet satisfaction, a physical manifestation of the truth they had discovered. True strength lay not in domination, but in connection, not in control, but in partnership. The weakest in the unit had become something new, not a weapon to be wielded, but a bridge between worlds, between ways of being. And in that transformation, he had found not just power but purpose, not just ability but understanding. The symbiont whispered in his mind, not with words, but with feelings of harmony and rightness. Eli smiled, resting his hand on the doorframe as he watched the future unfold before him, a future built not on the old paradigms of strength and weakness, but on the endless possibilities of true symbiosis.